You're listening to KOUG Radio. Listen live online at KOUGradio.org.
Happy Tuesday, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Sports Takes with Dom. I'm your host, Dominic Persinger, live with KOUG Radio. Today is April 18th, and I have a quick sports recap for you guys from the weekend. First, I'll go over my 8 picks from last Saturday's 14-fight UFC Kansas City card. Then I'll break down the beginning of each first round NBA playoff series that's happened so far for the first couple games. And then at the end, I'll, of course, end the show with some news of the day. So here's how my 8 picks went at UFC Kansas City, Holloway versus Allen. First, I'll have my recap of the final 2 prelims, then my 6 picks for the main card. So the second and last prelim was a flyweight 125-pound fight between Brandon Royval and Mateusz Nicolau, and number 4, Royval knocked out Nicolau in 2 minutes into the first round. Yeah, I missed this first fight and messed up my predictions here. I had Nicolau winning by decision, and he got knocked out. That was just bizarre to me. I did say I was worried about the fact that either fight could get finished just because both these guys have been knocked out before, and the fact that Royval is and has proven he's one of the most dangerous guys in this flyweight division. I don't even care that I got this pick wrong, frankly, because what an amazing knockout by Brandon Royval. I mean, he landed such a fast knee on Nicolau's chin, and I didn't even see it actually in real time. That's how fast it was. I only saw it in the slow-mo after the fight actually happened. Royval was able to finish him with only like 2 elbows on the ground after he dropped him with the knee, and the ref was able to jump in and end the fight. Royval looks like a top contender right now. I still don't understand why this fight was on the prelims and not high up on the main card. It literally could have been like a main event or co-main fight. But yeah, this was one of the best upsets of the night, and Royval was great on the mic afterwards too. Yeah, he's always great on the mic usually in his post-fight interviews. So yeah, for Royval's next fight, everyone is saying he should get a title shot, because of course Moreno and Pantoja are fighting for the belt in July, and it kind of makes sense for Royval to be next in line. But I think Royval needs another big fight before then. Like, he could easily fit in a fight before he gets that title shot. And I think it makes sense too to add a little bit more name value to him. Like, massive respect to Royval. He just beat the number 5 guy, but it was on the prelims of a main card. And the number 5 guy was only number 5 from beating the number 8 guy. So it's not like he was even like a real number 5 guy. He wasn't a true top 5 contender. It's not like he beat a top 5 guy to get there. So yeah, I would love to see Royval in a main event of a free fight night, like later this summer, maybe earlier this summer. And I think he should fight Kai Kara-France. Kai Kara-France is going to be out for almost a year this summer. He hasn't fought since last July. I think Royval can make like a quick turnaround and maybe fight in like 3 or 4 months on like a summer card, like I said. If he beats someone like Kai Kara-France, that's way more name value in a main event versus the prelim fight. That warrants a title shot then. So yeah, Kai Kara-France and Brandon Royval, UFC, make it happen. Then moving on to the final prelim, we had a featherweight 145-pound fight. Bill Aljo beat TJ Brown by his second round rear naked choke. I did get this one right, so I'm happy with that. But I thought this fight would reach a decision. I didn't think either fight would get finished. I like Aljo in this fight, but I felt he wasn't capable of finishing someone like TJ Brown, because TJ Brown's not a bad fighter, especially in the grappling. But great comeback win for Aljo here in this fight. He was completely pieced up in the first round. He had way more damage dealt to him, and he wore most of it. He was bleeding after the first round. And I was worried about Aljo after that first round because I thought he was going to gas and maybe even get knocked out. But yeah, Aljo came in the second round with a completely different game plan, looked like a completely different fighter. He got the takedown and started landing lots of strikes on Brown. And then, yeah, he eventually got to Brown's back when he was on the ground, and the rear naked choke was there immediately. No space for Brown to be. He wasn't even able to defend it pretty much, and he had to tap. Nice submission by Bill Aljo there. For Aljo's next fight, he definitely should get another guy just outside the top 15. Maybe not someone who gets him a top 15 fight, but someone in the 20s area that gets him up the rankings and into a great spot. I want to see Aljo fight someone like Pat Sabatini maybe. It'd be a great test because Aljo has great cardio and he has a great wrestling game too, but so does Sabatini. He has similar skills. This would be a very even fight, I feel like. And Sabatini's coming off the knockout last September, I believe. And he'll probably looking for a fight again soon. So this fight could definitely happen in like August as the opener of a free fight night main card. So yeah, UFC make that fight happen. Sabatini versus Aljo, and great win by Aljo. So moving on to my recap of the 6-fight main card for UFC Kansas City. There was a lightweight 155-pound fight between who was it? It was Rafa Garcia beat Clay Guida by a 30-27 decision. Yeah, so I had Rafa winning 2 rounds here, but he won all 3. I was wrong when I said I thought he'd use wrestling to use the minutes, but he actually wasn't able to land a single takedown in this fight. I was pretty surprised by that. Across the 3 rounds, though, Rafa outlanded Guida, looking here, 141-63 in significant strikes. And then it was also 130-49 on the head strikes. The rounds weren't very close. It seemed like Rafa was clearly winning them. And it was an all right performance by Garcia, but like then Guida looks like the age he's actually should be fighting at. He looked like a 4-year-old in this fight, and it started to wear on him. So, not a crazy win by Garcia, but like, I mean, I guess he has to win if what's he gonna do? Go out there and lose? But yeah, after this fight, Guida took off his gloves, kind of gesturing a possible retirement, because that's what they always do. They take off their gloves, and usually they don't give a loser of the fight, a mic opportunity, but they usually let a fighter, who's retiring, hop on the mic, just as like a respect thing. Guida hopped on the mic and said he tricked everyone. And he just said he wanted to wish someone happy birthday. Like, it was pretty weird, and I was kind of annoyed when he faked their retirement just to do that. I mean, like, you do to get the win and you can get a mic opportunity. And yeah, now it feels like it'll be like I feel like in the future, because like he's obviously gonna retire one day, I feel like the day he does retire, it'll be like a little boy cried wolf type scenario where, like maybe we're like, are you actually retiring? Is it a trick again? Maybe we don't give him like a mic opportunity again when he loses and actually wants to retire. So yeah, funny thing in that fight. But yeah, now looking to the future for Rafa Garcia, what's in store for next fight? If there were rankings outside the top 15, Garcia would probably be around like 30, I imagine. I'd like to see him fight Terrence McKinney next. I think that'd be a great fight because McKinney's at like probably like the 25 range, I bet. Somewhere in that 25 to 30 range. Kind of opposite styles if that fight was made, with one being fast paced and McKinney, and then Garcia is very patient and tries to wrestle a lot more. But I think that'd make for a great fight. I think clashing styles always makes for a chaotic, some sort of chaotic finish. Plus, McKinney's coming off the knockout loss about, I think it was 3 months ago in January, and he still needs time to recover, obviously. So I'd love to see this fight happen, probably like, kind of similar to the other fights, like August or September, give Garcia a little bit of rest, but McKinney obviously needs even more rest because he got knocked out. But yeah, it just makes sense. Garcia versus McKinney, it could be like a prelim on like a pay-per-view. Winner gets back into the top 25 and gets like a good matchup next. So yeah, moving on to the second main card fight. It was a bantamweight 135-pound fight. Number 9, Pedro Munoz beat number 13, Cruz Gutierrez by a 30-27 decision. I was wrong here again, guys, and I felt embarrassed here because I thought Gutierrez was going to shoot up the division. I thought he had excellent kickboxing. I thought he was going to school Pedro Munoz here. And yeah, this is probably one of my biggest misses on the card in general. I mean, luckily, I think everyone was pretty high in Gutierrez, and it wasn't just me. So, that makes you feel a little bit better. I was kind of part of like the hype train, I guess you could say. And yeah, like Gutierrez was a younger guy and Munoz is aging. It felt like they're trending, in opposite directions. This fight didn't make sense. MMA math never makes sense. You can't compare fights, you guys. Yeah, I'm also shocked with the fact that Munoz was the one better in the kickboxing when I thought that to be the place Gutierrez schools him in, and if Munoz wins, it'd be with the wrestling. And it's funny, Munoz's only actual ground control time was not from wrestling. It was from dropping Gutierrez on the feet and then eventually, just hopping on top of him. But Munoz didn't need to use the wrestling because he was just so much better than Gutierrez on the feet. That was mind-blowing to me. But yeah, awesome game plan by Munoz. What a upset victory. Like kind of like a career reviving victory because he probably has a few more fights locked up after that win. And yeah, he's back in the win column over an impressive up-and-coming contender. Looking at Pedro's next fight, I think there's a lot of opportunities here because he's in the best division, I think, in UFC and bantamweight at 135. Because he's at number 9 and just beat number 13, he'll probably remain around number 9. But I'd like to see someone fight I'd like to see him fight the loser of a top 10 fight in this division, and that's coming up next Saturday, a week from this Saturday, and that's Ricky Simone out of Vancouver, Washington, and he's fighting China's Song Yidong. So Simone is number 10, and Yidong is number 8. I believe winner of that 8 versus 10 matchup, they'll be looking for a top 5 opponent, and the loser will look for someone in like that 9 to 12, 13 range. Munoz versus a loser of Song Yidong and Simone makes perfect sense. I'll probably have a timeline for this fight when I know the damage taken, from the loser of Song Yidong and Simone. But yeah, it kind of makes sense. Munoz versus the loser of that fight. Book it later in the year on like a free fight night or pay-per-view main card. And yeah, it just makes sense. And moving on to the feature fight. It was a light heavyweight, or sorry, not the feature fight, fourth to last fight. Light heavyweight 205 matchup between Jan Kuchalaba, and he knocked out Tanner Broser in 2 minutes into the first round. I'm so glad I switched picks here, you guys. I did it live on the show last time. I was very high on Tanner Broser the whole week. And then once I got on the show, I was like, Kuchalaba is the way better fighter. He's just lost 3 in a row to like top 10 guys. He's not losing to bums. But yeah, first time ever I've switched picks live on the show, and it worked. So thank God. It just hit me that Kuchalaba and Broser, they were losing to different guys. Like I said, they were losing on different levels. I also had a feeling a weight cut down from heavyweight would be kind of tough for Broser. He actually looked kind of jacked too, which didn't make sense. He looked jacked, but the weight cut obviously still hit him hard. So that was kind of funny. But yeah, Kuchalaba did exactly what he needed to do, and he came out fast like usual. This could have been a much more stressful fight if it had gone past the first round, because Kuchalaba has a terrible gas tank. But, Kuchalaba didn't need that gas tank, though. He dropped Broser really fast, about a minute and a half in. Broser tried to recover against the cage. Kuchalaba was just landing shot after shot against him on the cage. And Broser maybe could have recovered. It was kind of an early stoppage, but I think Broser would have been knocked out, flatlined at that point. It would have been a much more brutal knockout if the ref had let it keep going. So great job by Kuchalaba there. Happy for him that he ended his 3-fight losing streak. Because, if he got to 4 in a row on a losing streak, the UFC might have cut him after that, and I know he's a lot better than that. So for next fight for Kuchalaba, I'd like to see him fight someone just outside the top 15, like a winner that would, a fight that if he wins, it would get him a ranked opponent after that, or maybe like the number 15 spot. I want to see Kuchalaba fight Dawoon Jung. Now, he's on back-to-back losses, but he had a 15-fight unbeaten streak before then. So I think it's a little bit misleading. Plus, it's against Devin Clark and what's his name, Dustin Jacoby. So they're quality losses. Top 20 guys in the light heavyweight division. And yeah, he's only been finished once in the last 8 years. So pretty impressive. Really impressive resume. This would be a great fight. Kuchalaba, if he could finish someone this tough. Jung hasn't fought in 2.5 months, coming off a decision loss. So these guys will probably be on similar timelines. They'll probably both only get back in there probably like in the summer, probably like August, like the rest of all these guys. So yeah, get this fight in a free fight night main card in August. Could easily be a feature fight too. And moving on to this fight card's feature fight, we had a light heavyweight 205 matchup between number 15 Azamat Murzakanov, and he beat number 13 Justin Jacoby by 29-20 decision. So I was wrong here again. It was kind of a shaky card, you guys. I was up and down the whole time. This brought me to 3-3 on the night. Not a good record. It was a tough night, but I felt like I was pretty accurate, at least with the guys I picked right. I picked the method of victory pretty accurate, I feel like, throughout the card, but the L's were just not, it was tough. I was really feeling these L's because I was really high on the guys, on the favorites that were supposed to win. But yeah, I thought, in this fight, I thought Jacoby would use his range so much more, and he just didn't. I think Murzakanov looks so much quicker. He had way more power, that's for sure, in the first 2 rounds too. Pretty much in the first 2 rounds, Murzakanov dropped Jacoby each round, clearly winning both rounds. In boxing, if you drop a guy, you win that round pretty much, unless he's just been dominating you the whole rest of the round. Then in the 3rd round, Murzakanov completely gassed. And that was all Jacoby's round. That was his chance. He needed to win that round. He needed to get the finish because he was down 2-0. You can't win on the scorecards if you're down 2-0. The best you can do is tie at that point with a 10-8 round. But yeah, this is where I question Jacoby's fight IQ. So with 2 minutes left, he had a gassed opponent. He had nearly knocked him out multiple times in that 3rd round. and Jacoby decides to pin Mirzakhanov against the fence, go for underhooks, and just like hug him pretty much for 2 minutes. Jacoby could have teed off on this inexperienced, UFC fighter, but no, the former world-class kickboxer turned into a wrestler. Like, what a mistake by Jacoby. And then, yeah, just I guess what an excellent first 2 rounds by Mirzakhanov. It worked out here, but I mean, he was gassed in that 3rd round. Just most fighters with higher fight IQ, they get someone like that out of there. They'd finish Mirzakhanov because he was a completely gassed fighter, and Jacoby had way more cardio left in the tank. So yeah, I guess moving on to Mirzakhanov's next fight, he's number 15. He just beat number 13. He'll probably end up at like number 11 or number 12, I bet. I think a Volkan Ozdemir fight makes the most sense to me. He's at number 8. And Volkan lost in October, so he'll probably want to plan a fight soon. Mirzakhanov probably needs, a few fights to recover and improve his gas tank, that's for sure. But yeah, this could be a great free fight night, co-main event in September maybe. Winner gets like a top 7 or top 8 opponent next. So yeah, Volkan versus Mirzakhanov, that's an awesome fight. UFC, please make it happen. Now moving on to the last 2 fights from this past Saturday, we had the co-main featherweight 145-pound fight. Edson Barbosa knocked out Billy Quarantillo 2.5 minutes into the very first round. This was another spot where I feel like I was so far off my pick. Like, once again, luckily this card was full of many fans in the same boat. You could definitely tell the dogs were barking, guys. The dogs were barking. But yeah, as I mentioned in the last show, Billy was going to be the faster pace, fighter, but with lower technical skills. And Edson proved his advantage in the technical skills by a perfectly timed knockout blow. Billy got super sloppy and left its head exposed, while shooting a takedown. You cannot leave your head exposed like in this high level of UFC when you're shooting a takedown. Edson timed it perfectly, one of the most perfectly timed flying knees I've ever seen, and Billy was out cold. And yeah, the fight was immediately stopped by referee Keith Peterson. This was definitely knockout of the night. I think so far it's one of the top 3 knockouts of the year. So awesome knockout by Edson Barbosa. Once again, it's kind of like earlier in the night with Roy Val. I don't care if I get my pick wrong here, if like it ends in like a crazy highlight finish or some crazy fight, because I'm a fan first, of course. But yeah, what a career reviving knockout by Barbosa here. Because he was 3-7 in his last 10 before here. So for Barbosa's next fight, obviously he wants to be back soon, with no damage taken in a first round knockout. He is at number 14 in the featherweight rankings, but there's a big gap in the rankings right now. So he's already fought number 13, Dan Ige. Number 12 is hurt. 10 and 11 are fighting next month. Then number 9 and number 5 are fighting this summer, like later in the summer. That leaves us with number 7, Calvin Kattar, which actually makes a lot of sense. I mean, I know 7 and 14 shouldn't fight that often because it's kind of high up the rankings, but it actually makes a lot of sense here. I'll explain. So Calvin Kattar blew out his knee last November, and he's already entering his post-rehab because these guys just, they have freak recoveries where they come back a lot faster than some other athletes, it seems like. So Calvin Kattar will probably be looking for like an August or September return, I bet. Get Edson back in there, in 3.5, 4 months. That's a quick turnaround. And Kattar will probably make sense. And with his timeline from his injury, that'll be like 9 or 10 months out from his surgery. And then if Kattar and Edson fight, if Edson wins, he has one last run towards the title. I think he's like 37 years old. And then if Kattar wins, that's a great way to come back from knee surgery and then get like another like top 5, top 6 fight. So yeah, moving on to the last fight from UFC Kansas City, was the main event. It was another featherweight 145-pound fight. Number 2, Max Holloway beat number 4, Arnold Allen by a 49-46 decision. I think Max clearly won 4 rounds too. You could argue he won all 5, but I think he definitely won 4. So this was an awesome, highly competitive fight, and Max did exactly what he needed to do. I said he just needed to win one of the first 3 rounds, and I thought the rounds 4 and 5 were locked in for him. And this all felt perfectly executed by Max. So Max surprisingly actually came out faster, which everyone expected Allen to do, because Allen has less of the gas tank, kind of comes out a lot faster than Max. Max is more of a durable guy, and he's more of a guy who wears on you. But yeah, Max came out faster, and Max won that first round. He doubled the strikes landed of Allen. Then the second round was pretty close, but I feel like Allen had more memorable moments. So I think it was 1-1 going into the third round. Round 3 was the most clear round for Holloway. He outlanded Allen. Let's see here, 30-10 on strikes in that third round. That's a big gap there. The fourth round was pretty clear for Holloway as well. He was starting to wear on Allen. Allen was getting pretty bloody. I was more impressed with Max's speed, I would say, than ever. And just because I know how fast Arnold Allen's hands are, that made me even more impressed on a whole nother level with Max Holloway. So yeah, the fifth round was Allen's round, I feel like, which would have made it, a more respectful 3-2 on the rounds. But Allen was literally dropped in the final, 5 seconds of the fight, and Max stole that round. And I think Max proves what I've always said about him in this fight. I said it last week. He has the most impressive output I've ever seen of a UFC fighter. His durability is not matched by anyone else. I think he's the toughest UFC fighter in all MMA history. And yeah, he's proving time and time again. He's one of my favorite all-time fighters to watch. And he still has plenty in the tank too. I mean, like I said, he's only 31 years old, and he's been around since he was 19 in the UFC. It feels like he's been around forever. It feels like he should be 40 years old, but he's only 31. Because Max can literally beat everyone but the champ pretty much, in Volkanovski. He deserves another eventual title shot, I feel like. He's the former champ. He had multiple title defenses. And I think he deserves another shot eventually. It's so interesting to see these gaps in this featherweight division. So you see Volk, he's a step ahead of Max. He won all 5 rounds versus Max this past summer. But then Max is a step ahead of everyone else. Guys are not beating Max in the rest of the division. With that being said, Max is 1-0 since his last title fight last summer, after beating Allen the other night. He probably needs another win, I feel like, before getting that other title shot. I love him see fight another top contender. I think what makes the most sense is number 3, Brian Ortega. Ortega had shoulder surgery. I think he got injured last June, and he's been out for almost a year. I think this fight would make sense in the fall, a big headliner, a 5-round main event of a free fight night. A win for Max gives him the next title shot, and then a win for Ortega puts him probably 1 win away from a title shot. So yeah, Holloway versus Ortega. I need to see this fight happen. So yeah, I went 4-4 on this UFC card. Not acceptable. That's 500, and that won't win you anything in sports. I started out on a hot streak on the show of picks with a 15-3-1 in my first 2 cards, but on the last 2 cards, I'm 8-9 in the past 2 weeks. That brings me to 23-12-1 on my picks through 4 UFC cards. That's a 66% pick rate, which was my goal, but I'd love to get back into the 70s, you guys. So let's make that happen after these next couple weeks. So now heading over to the NBA world. We have a 6 series with 1 game done, and 2 of the series with 2 games done as of last night. So here's a quick breakdown of what each series is looking like so far. So starting with the West, we got the number 1 Denver Nuggets, and they went up number 1 on the Minnesota Timberwolves 109-88 2 nights ago. This series I think going to be close. The first game wasn't close for most of the game. I feel like Denver built a 10-point lead, I think midway through the second quarter, and then Minnesota was never really able to capitalize and get a run going. They're never able to get their offense going after that. The Nuggets defense super impressive as of late. I think that's a big reason why why they're number 1 seed in the West. You have to play defense in this league. They held Minnesota only 36 second half points. 80 points the game is really low, especially for this how historically high scoring the NBA is this year. So yeah, super impressive defense by the Nuggets. Yeah, when I was looking at the box score after the game, I was like, wait, the whole Denver starting lineup contributed really evenly with the scoring. I think Jokic only had 15 points. So super impressive, well-rounded scoring about the whole entire starting lineup. I'm glad Jamal Murray is finally, back to kind of like his normal health because he missed all of last season. And yeah, I'm happy for him. I think he had like 20 something the other night. If that first game was any indication of how the rest of the series will go, I have Denver winning this series in only 4 or 5 games. It's not gonna be competitive. I love guys like the style of guys, like Ant Edwards and Mike Conley in the playoffs, but their front court is just oddly overmatched. I'm not buying it. Like that Gobert Towns pairing is stupid to me. And moving on, the number 7 Los Angeles Lakers beat the number 2 Memphis Grizzlies 128 to 112 2 days ago. So I'm feeling awesome about this upset prediction so far. The Lakers have already stolen a game on the road, so that's awesome, giving them the home court advantage at this point. Pretty much, yeah. If they can, even if they lose game 2, I still feel in really good shape for the Lakers because they go back home for 2 games. The Lakers front court is the big difference maker in this series, obviously, and the Grizzlies are proving that they're heavily undersized in that first game. Jaren Jackson looked awesome. He dropped 31 points, but it's not going to be enough to be able to keep up. He's not dropping 31 a night either. Even if Jaren Jackson has his best career game every night, he's not going to be able to keep up. With Hachimura, who had an incredible game 1, he had 29, and you have LeBron and AD. But I think Hachimura is going to be that X factor in the series because he needs to give him like a scoring presence off the bench. He needs him that little spark. And yeah, John Morant got hurt here in like game 1 too, and they said he'll likely return for game 2 or game 3. I read this morning that he's gonna make a game time decision, so that means he'll probably be back for at least game 3. But yeah, that kills this team obviously in favor of the Lakers. If Morant can stay healthy, this series will definitely go to like 7 games, like I said. But if Morant misses game 2 and the Lakers go up 2-0, like Lakers go back to LA pretty much only need to win one of those 2 games. Like if the Lakers go up 3-1, I think this series is pretty much close to over. Memphis cannot lose game 2, and it's so crucial they win that. Still rooting for the Lakers though. Wouldn't usually root for the Lakers, but they're my pick, so yeah, I have to rock with them. Now moving on, number 5 Los Angeles Clippers beat the number 4 Phoenix Suns 115 to 110. So yeah, first off, this was by far the best playoff game of the all the games so far. The Clippers built, I want to say they built a 15-point first half lead, and they blew it. And the Suns had some momentum in the third quarter. They got a small lead of their own, and then they blew it. And the fourth quarter was back and forth the entire time. It was such an entertaining quarter. I want to say 80% of the quarter was probably a 1-possession game. So this is going to be such a crazy series. And like I said last week, it'll probably be the closest series. I think this series still goes 7 games, because Paul George is out for the Clippers. So like, even though Phoenix is down 1-0, they have that advantage. I think the Suns will probably bounce back in game 2. I'm hoping with this pick because I had the Suns here, obviously. Then they need to split the games at least in LA, worst case scenario, because they need to go back home 2-2. They cannot be down 3-1 after leaving LA. And dude, Kawhi was a monster on Sunday. He had 38. It's so hard to count out Kawhi Leonard in the playoffs. It makes me so bitter. Why did I count against him? But it's because the Suns of Kevin Durant. Like, how do you bet against? How do you have no trust? How do I lose trust in Kevin Durant in the playoffs? It makes no sense to me. But the Suns definitely need to find ways, to contain Kawhi Leonard a little more. Also, I think it sucks either way because we're gonna go in the second round. We're really gonna be missing Kawhi Leonard or Kevin Durant. The West is ridiculously loaded this year. But yeah, need the Suns to bounce back. I think they'll bounce back, but we'll see about that. Now for the Eastern Conference NBA playoff series so far. Number 8 Miami Heat beat the number 1 Milwaukee Bucks. Now, a quick reminder: I not have a prediction for the number 1, number 8 series just because number 1, number 8s were not playing, or we did not know the series teams before my last show. So unfortunately, I don't have 1 versus 8 prediction, but I'll still do a breakdown. So number 8 Miami Heat beat number 1 Milwaukee Bucks 130 to 117. Okay, so Miami stole a game in Milwaukee, you guys. Is it shocking? Yes. Will the Bucks win the series? Most likely, yes. I'm not really too scared for them. I think this happens a lot, where happens every year. I feel like, and an 8 seed or a 7 seed, steals that first game. The 1 seed who proves they're a 1 seed in the second game, they make adjustments, and then maybe they win the next 4 games in a row. For the next 5 games. I think that's this series this year. Former, and also the fact that in this game one, Giannis, the former MVP, he only played 11 minutes before subbing out, and he had a lower back contusion on Sunday. So had he played the whole time, it probably would have been a completely different game. I do want to mention that the Heat were up like I want to say 12 or 13 points when Giannis did go out. So it wasn't like the Bucks were winning when Giannis got hurt, but still would have been a completely different factor. I also think the Heat are going to struggle here without Tyler Hero. Hero broke his hand on Sunday too, during the crazy day of injuries. It made no sense. Morant, Hero, and Morant, Hero, and Giannis all got hurt on the same day on Sunday. Yeah, the Heat obviously have a few scorers, but Hero gives them that big threat on the wing because they don't really have quite a guy like that. I mean, they have like Max Strus, but they don't have he's their true 20-point game scorer who can kind of score from any place on the court. Jimmy Butler and Adebayo are not quite that threat on the wing. With the Heat probably needing to rely, more on, like I said, Max Strus and Duncan Robinson. I like the Bucks still in the series. I think the only reason the Bucks lose the series is if Giannis, misses more games. But I think Derry said they're pretty optimistic about him playing game 2, which is good to hear. Similar to Memphis, the Bucks need to win game 2 badly. But I don't think they're completely screwed if they go down 2 or 0-2, 2-0, 0-2, however you want to phrase it. If they're one of those teams, I think they're one of those teams you put trust in when they go down 0-2, just because ever since it came back down from 2-0 in the finals, you got to put stock in them. They're one of those teams that are capable, of kind of being clutch and coming back down from being down in the series. Yeah, I think the Bucks still win this, but it's gonna be interesting. Now moving on, number 2 Boston Celtics, they beat number 7 Atlanta Hawks 112-99. First of all, the scores do not do this game justice whatsoever. The Celtics were up 74-44 at halftime, and I would say the game was over at that point. The Hawks made a decent comeback, but they still lost in double digits, so that says a lot. Derek White stepped up huge for the Celtics, which they need badly. I kind of thought about that. Aside from Tatum and Brown, they really need that third consistent scorer. I think every team kind of needs that outside of their 2 stars who score. White is huge for them. He's a great 3-and-D player who complements the stars very nicely. I think, yeah, so Trae Young struggled pretty heavily in that game 1 because, as I've said before, he struggles versus very lanky, big defenses, that play gritty defense, and the Celtics do that. I don't think the series is going to be very close, and I said that before. I had Boston winning this in 5 games, and I'm going to still stick with that pick. I think Atlanta gets 1 game at home, but I think Boston wins 3 games at home and steals 1 in Atlanta to win in 5 games. Now moving on, the number 5 New York Knicks beat number 4 Cleveland Cavaliers 101-97 on Saturday night. So I was surprised when this turned to a defensive-minded game, I guess you could say. I figured the series would be lots of, high scoring, high firing, flashy offenses both ways. And I kind of figured maybe if someone was going to play defense, it would be the Cavs because they have someone like Evan Mobley, who's a top 5 Defensive Player of the Year candidate. They did announce Jaren Jackson Jr. won Defensive Player of the Year yesterday, but Mobley did finish, I believe, top 3 in the voting. So yeah, I figured the Cavs would be ones playing the defense, but I guess not. But props to the Knicks. They held the Cavs under 100 points. Very impressive in a playoff game. Holding anyone under 110 points this year is impressive at this point. Josh Hart was awesome for the Knicks. I love that. I'm a big fan of Josh Hart because he was, as a former Blazer. He was by far the most important player of that night. I feel like, got a huge double-double for them. He hit clutch shots. And Jalen Brunson hit big shots as well. Julius Randle had terrible numbers, which is pretty normal come playoff time for him. Donovan Mitchell, he had 38. Doesn't surprise me. I believe I said I think Mitchell would average about 30 a game this series, so he'll probably keep up with that. But someone else needs to score too for them. I think it's gonna be interesting to see where the series goes. I originally had the Cavs winning 5 games, but that's not happening now. I don't see the Cavs rattling off 4 games in a row. All of a sudden. I still like the Cavs to win this series, but obviously it's gonna be a lot closer now. I'm hoping they can get it done in 7 still, and I'm gonna bank on that. Now, ending the NBA segment with the only 2 series who have played 2 games. Like I said, 6 series have played 1 game, 2 have played 2. Here's a breakdown for those 2. Number 3 Sacramento Kings are up 2-0 on the Golden State Warriors, who are number 3, after 2 very close games. I'm very surprised here, and it hurts that I'm getting this wrong so far. I figured the Warriors would have split those first 2 games in Sacramento, just because of how much history they have in the playoffs. I had no worry this would be the first Western Conference team to be a Steve Kerr led Warriors squad, but now I'm kind of biting my nails. De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis have looked incredible. I feel like the Warriors aren't finding answers in guarding Sabonis, even though they have Draymond Green. He's just undersized. I think the Warriors were also hurt tremendously when Draymond Green got ejected in that game too, so that hurt them a lot. I mean, luckily, they do have Steph and Clay, and they've still been playing fine. And all they need to do is defend home court at this point. It could easily be 2-2 after 4 games, and then not biting my nails as much. But yeah, I think I have a lot of faith in that too, just because the Warriors have the strongest home court advantage in the playoffs. But they definitely need to look a lot better, and they need that other that third reliable scorer. I've been saying along 2 stars, they need that third scorer to step up and hit shots. Jordan Poole should be that guy, but he's been awful so far. He's been awful as of late. He was very disappointing this whole entire season. But yeah, the other night last night he shot 1 of 7 last night, and he only played 15 or 16 minutes. Said somehow Gary Payton Jr. has played more meaningful minutes than Jordan Poole, who they paid Jordan Poole $100 million. Meanwhile, Gary Payton's on the vet minimum or something. So I guess let's just see what the Warriors can do at home. I don't want to get this pick wrong, but we'll see. I think the Warriors could easily go into Game 5 tied 2-2, but if they lose a game at home, I don't see them winning this series. It's not the same Warriors squad anymore. It's going to come back down from 3-1 versus Oklahoma City or something. Now, moving on to the last playoff series breakdown, and the only other series done with 2 games. The number 3 Philadelphia 76ers are up 2-0 on the number 6 Brooklyn Nets. Not surprised here at all. I think Philly has a great core, surrounding the frontrunner MVP, Joel Embiid. It's so crazy to think of James Harden as a second scoring option too. I mean, that's a deadly team if you have Harden, who's not even your first option. I think Tyrese Maxey's looked awesome as well. He had 33 points in last night's game. I'm so amazed at how many guys can drop 25, 30 points on the Sixers. That's kind of that's their big strength there. As I said before, the Nets are a good team, but I can't trust a player like Bridges as your number 1 scoring option, especially in the playoffs. I think he's a great young scorer, but he's not a top level guy in the playoffs for scoring, at least not yet. In the first 2 games, Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson have been the Nets' top 2 scorers, and that will not win you a series in the playoffs when you're playing James Harden and Joel Embiid, along with Tobias Harris and Tyrese Maxey too. You're not winning that series with Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges. Great young players, but they're not winning you a series as your top 2 guys. Yeah, I thought the series would go 6 with the Sixers winning, but now it might be even faster for the Sixers, I'm guessing. I bet they split the next 2 games in Brooklyn, because the Nets I think they have enough heart to not get swept, but the Sixers will go up 3-1, leaving Brooklyn, going back to Philly, and they'll probably actually end up closing this in 5 games, not 6 games. So yeah, great start for Philly in the playoffs. So now it's time for some news of the day. First, in the NFL, yesterday the Philadelphia Eagles and their star QB, 2022 NFL MVP runner-up, Jalen Hurts, they reached a massive contract agreement. So they've agreed to a 5-year, $255 million contract extension. So we're talking $51 million a year, and the contract features $180 million of that guaranteed money. From an annual salary standpoint, this is the most lucrative contract in NFL history. So I have 2 strong opinions on this. The first, I think this is awesome for Hurts. He deserves every penny, obviously. It also resets the QB market slightly, and that makes some of the current QB contracts, Daniel Jones, makes him look like a lot more of a bargain. So thank you to the Eagles for paying the man his worth and for resetting the QB market a little bit. My second opinion, as a salty Giants fan, this contract sucks. I now have to watch Jalen Hurts terrorize my New York Football Giants defense for another 5+ years. And man, I can't stand watching the Eagles ever beat the Giants. That's tough. That's always tough to watch. So I'm happy for Hurts. I also think he's a very likable player, even though he's a Philadelphia Eagle. But man, this hurts as a Giants fan. No pun intended with the Hurts. So my other news of the day goes back to the UFC. I'm super excited to announce this one. So the first part of this is, unfortunately, Charles Oliveira versus Beneil Dariush, a massive top 5 lightweight fight in UFC, was canceled from the UFC 288 card in May. So this was canceled a week ago due to a minor injury on the Oliveira side. So there's a bright side, don't worry. So they've announced that Oliveira versus Dariush is being rescheduled in June. What could possibly be in June, you guys? It's UFC Vancouver, British Columbia. And this is the exact kind of fight I wanted them to add. It sucks it won't happen sooner in May, but what a great addition to UFC Vancouver. And I've talked about how I want to possibly attend UFC 289 in Vancouver for my first live event. And Charles Du Bronx Oliveira may seal the deal. So awesome fight announcement there. Or I guess not really a fight announcement because we knew it was going to happen, but nice fight movement there to a great addition on the card. So staying with the UFC, this is even bigger news, great local news. So I have some, awesome local news. So this weekend's free UFC Fight Night was supposed to feature the top current UFC fighter from the Northwest, Ricky Simón. Ricky wrestled at Union High School in Camas, Washington. He grew up in Vancouver and he trains out of Portland. So Ricky's the number 10 in the bantamweight rankings and is set to face number 8, Song Yadong. I've mentioned this a few times the past couple of weeks. So Simón versus Yadong was set to be the co-main event this Saturday. Last week, the main event for April 29th, a week from this Saturday, was called off. So the UFC, even though Ricky and Song were set to fight, this Saturday on April 22nd, the April 29th card badly needed a main event because Hanada Moicano, backed out of the fight versus Arman Sarukian. So Ricky Simón and Song Yadong have come in to save the day, and that's awesome to hear. And this is as of last night too. They've agreed to now headline the main event on April 29th instead of being the co-main this weekend. So they'll now be fighting a week later, but pushed up to a main event slot. This also means they've agreed to fight 5 rounds for the main event, instead of the original 3 rounds, which is normal for almost any other fight that's not like a main event or a non-title fight. So yeah, what a cool opportunity for Ricky Simón. Like seeing a UFC card, even if it's a free fight night, not a pay-per-view, seeing a headliner saying Simón versus Song, Simón out of Vancouver, Washington, that's pretty cool. It's probably the biggest MMA fight a person has ever been in from Clark County, Washington, so very cool. And Ricky's probably one of the best, I would say, current professional athletes from the area. I think the other name that kind of pops into my mind is Jordan Childs, the gymnast from Prairie High School. But yeah, super excited for this main event, and I can't wait until April 29th. That's all for today, you guys. So enjoy the NBA Game 2s tonight, tomorrow. Tonight we have Atlanta versus Boston at 4, and then New York versus Cleveland at 4:30, and the LA Clippers versus Phoenix at 7. So I'll be back Thursday live at 1 p.m. for some more UFC and NBA predictions. Thanks for tuning in to Sports Takes with Dom. I'm Dominic Persinger for the KOUG Radio.